Hello, Mark. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, Max. Thank you for having me on.
Yes. I think you're doing great work, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. And we need more people like you working on these type of topics, right? We'll get into them. Victim mentality is a huge issue. We've seen, especially in the last couple of years, we've seen how easy it is to manipulate people, and how language can basically also hypnotize, and all these types of topics. So yeah, I'm glad you're here, and maybe we can touch upon a few important topics, and if we don't get to finish it, maybe there's time for a second one at some point.
I enjoy a round two conversation. This is this is my 389th guest appearance on people's shows on podcasts,
Wow.
and yeah, it's something I enjoy doing for a variety of reasons. And yeah, if we like the conversation that we get into, which I'm suspicious that we will, we're gonna definitely do a follow up.
Amazing. To go back a bit to understand you a bit better, so you come from an education background, right? And
Yes.
then wrestler, also martial artist, and then there's a story that I heard when you got choked for the first time. Like, take me to that, because I'm interested in that.
Yeah, it sounds weird, everybody. I know. Yeah, so wrestling or amateur wrestling in the United States, um, it's all about scoring points, pinning someone, winning um, that way. And I wrestled in high school, and that was cool. I mean, I liked it. I pin you, you pin me. Uh, and the first time I took a jujitsu class in 1996, um, I went in there and the our PE teacher. I was taking a PE class, so it was a requirement. And at the end, he goes, "Are there any wrestlers in the room?" And I raised my hand, and he goes, "We're doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Tuesday and Thursday at 6 in the gymnasium. You should come check it out." And he ended up Paul Creighton. He's a black belt, longtime black belt under Henzo. He fought BJ Penn for the strap in the UFC. I mean, he knew what he was doing. And yeah, and so I went in there and did class, and then at the end, everybody rolls live, and this dude put me in the most basic choke ever. He just took his fist, stuck it right in my windpipe, and then pulled down on the back of my head. Very easy to defend, like as easy as it gets, really. I had no idea what to do. My arms are going all over the place, and my field of vision goes like that, and then he lets go, and I was like, oh my god, that was cool. Um, and yeah, I got obsessed. I got obsessed for 6 years, and it's one of the reasons, one of the things that brought me into you know this work, this space. Yeah, so I fought, I competed in MMA and kickboxing, and then moved to Thailand in 2002. Thought I was going to be there for a year. That turned into 10 years. Still sounds a little strange to say, but yeah. So I got a lot. I am eternally. So I've got a bag. I don't know if you're recording the video to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started kickboxing when I was 20, and I'm 47 now. And I'll go over to that bag once a month and kiss it.
Mm.
I'm serious, man. I'll give it a hug. I'll kiss it, and I'll just say thank you. Because without that, I don't know what the fuck I'd be into, man. And I like. I mean, I still practice. I'm watching the UFC fights tonight. Um, I think Volkanovski's going to take it, or stay the champ. So it's still a part of my life for sure. Always will be, and I'm just so damn grateful that I came across that when I did, because I needed something to I needed something to capture my attention or command my focus, and I hadn't had that before. I was a horrible student in high school and in college, mainly in high school. I mean, I wasn't disruptive. I was destructive because I was bored out of my mind. And I was basically the whole time I was in school. And I came out of that experience thinking that, there's something wrong with me. I'm dumb. Um, and that whole, not good enough, atelophobia, victim mentality thing is just right around the corner from that. Yeah. And that was the first time I ever got obsessed with something. And then I started exploring, I started learning about myself in a different way. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can get good at things if they hold my attention. Like attention is the same. It's a gift. I know we're off on a bit of a tangent, and I'm going to bring it back around. Attention is like attraction. It's not a choice. You don't get to choose who you're attracted to. You can't talk yourself into being attracted to someone or out of being attracted to someone. And it's the same thing with, what people's interests and passions and purposes are. Those are gifts, and you got to pay attention to that. And the second thing that captured my attention and held it was what I'm assuming we're going to speak a good amount or a lot on today, which is the power of our words and our stories and how they influence us for better and for worse. The first time I ever saw someone change someone's words in a professional way, in a professional setting, in order to help this woman free herself from a very painful and self-deprecating breakup story, was in 2003. And this guy had her, he just took the whole story and flipped it on its head with one word in one sentence. And I saw that and I was like, that's fucking cool. And that was the second time that that's happened to me. It's like getting struck by lightning twice. It's a gift. And yeah, I've been in the game since. And I've been doing this professionally. This one thing, talking about words and stories and words and stories and breath for the whole full time for 17 years now. And I'm just getting started.
Amazing. And then you get these little like pushes, right? Like the time that you fucked up your knee, right? Talk about that a little bit, because that, I think that just kind of supported your growth into what you're doing now, right?
For damn sure. It was like a lot of things that happen to us or for us, how do you choose your words? We don't know what they are when they first land. So yeah, I moved over to Thailand in 2002 for the Thai boxing. The plan was be over there for a year, polish up my Thai boxing skills, and come back and go pro. 6 months in, I'm having my second knee surgery. And the doctor told me, he goes, buddy, it's over. You're done. And I believed him. So I made that true in my mind and in my heart. And darkness descended, dude. 1,000%. I used that because that was by far the biggest thing I had attempted in my life up until that time. I'd only had my passport for 2 years. We would go on 1 or 2 week family vacations a couple of states away at the beach. Moving overseas was nuts. Who does that? I had 3 going away parties. So it was a big deal. And I go over there and fall flat on my face. And I use that as proof in a case that I was secretly making against myself, that I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm a born loser. And that was the final piece of evidence. Case closed. And I stopped laughing, dude. I stopped laughing. I stopped smiling. I didn't really laugh for an entire year until I got sick of myself and realized this was the first time I ever remember. And people can't claim wisdom. That's also a gift, in my opinion. This is the first time I remember wisdom showing up in my life. And I was like, dude, are you going to be complaining about this when you're 55? Are you going to be the guy talking about a flash in the pan fight career when you're 55, 60? I was like, bro, if you do that, then you really are a loser. I was like, okay, cool. I'll take anything but that. Right around that same time, um, a friend of mine had gone down, and I was living in Bangkok at the time. 5 years in Bangkok, 5 years on Koh Samui. He had gone down and done this cleanse at a spa cleansing resort, fasting, that kind of thing. And he goes, man, they're doing some really cool stuff down there. I think you should go check it out. And he gave me a book called The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity by Daniel Reed. And he was like, they modeled the fasting program off of this book. I read the book. I'd had some acupuncture in college, and it's just a way better model. I mean, on the first page, let's talk about this. On the first page, they talked about the difference between the traditional Chinese medicine model and the allopathic Western model. And the difference is profound from the beginning, starting with money. So a traditional Chinese medicine doctor stops getting paid when their clients are sick. In Western model, they stop getting paid when their clients are better. And I was just like, holy mother. I was like, what? That makes, unfortunately, perfect sense. And so I read the rest of the book, and I was like, I'm going down there. And I went down there, and I kept going back. On my third trip down there is when I went to that emotional detoxification workshop where the woman told it was a bad breakup story. It was public and embarrassing. And so her and her friends get a house at the beach. It's called Beach Week during college. And her boyfriend and his friends got the house next door. Add alcohol, press play. He hooked up with one of her best friends in front of everybody the night before, and then dumped her in front of everybody else the next night. Embarrassing. And she'd been hung up on that story for 4 years, so much so she hadn't gotten in another relationship, and really, really, really took it personal. And the sentence that held the whole thing together was, "He did that to me." I've told the story a lot, and I'll keep telling it. It was the first time I saw magic. And he goes, say that sentence again. He did that to me. Say it again. He did that to me. He said, take out that last word and put in the word himself. And that was such a different story than the story she'd been telling herself. It was a clunky delivery, and it went up at the end. It's called up talk. He did that to himself? And then the breath unlocks. He did do that to himself. And then she started talking about how he lost friends and it ended up being worse for him. And then she finally goes, it was never going to work out anyway. That guy was actually really weird. And she walked out of that room with a different story. So when someone says, I changed my life, or they changed my life, one of the things they're talking about, if not the main thing they're talking about, is they change their story. And if someone changes their story, then they change their words. And this is where the conversation of mindset is going. And we're helping it get there. So the conversation of mindset, let's start with a definition of mindset. What is it? It gets talked about a lot. How about we have if not a standardized definition, at least one simple one. And you're not going to get a simple, clear, practical definition of mindset on the first page of Google. You can ask Google, what's mindset, definition of mindset. You'll get 17 definitions on the first page. Half of them are just ridiculously complicated. It's like someone tried to do it on purpose, make it complicated so people can't understand it. So they keep outsourcing their mindset to other people and institutions. Well, what is it? What is it? It's the story that we tell ourselves. That's what mindset is. It's the story that we tell ourselves to ourselves on a daily basis. It's the story we tell ourselves to ourselves about ourselves. What we can do and what we can't do, and what is possible and what isn't possible, and what we do deserve and what we don't deserve. And 99% of that shit is opinions. I mean, nothing ever works out for me. That's not a unit of measurement. That's not, everybody has it so much easier than me is not on the periodic table of elements. You know, it's like
Yeah.
they're just ideas that people don't write out and don't take the time, mainly because of know-how. And it can also get scary for sure. Changing words. First things first, get the story out on paper.
Mm.
So I
Yeah,
just
we
put a lot
talk
of
about
stuff
it
on
a
the
lot.
table. Yeah, Max.
Yeah, plenty. Yeah, plenty.
Tell me where to go.
Man, we can go anywhere. I mean, why should we think about our thinking, right? Because I think a lot of people actually don't do that. And then, you just touch upon it. Basically,
Yeah.
why is writing it down so powerful?
Yeah. So there's two separate questions. Why should we think about our thinking? Because if you're not thinking about your thinking, somebody else is going to do it for you. And they're not going to do it. And the chances are they're not going to have your best interest in mind. Also known as the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Also known as, well, Big Pharma. We just got out of a fun little lockdown. That was cute. Yeah, and all the all the all the interesting information coming out about whatever the fuck was in those syringes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge scare tactic. And it's just fun. It's at the beginning. There's some heavy lifting. I understand that the pen can feel like it weighs 600 pounds, and it takes some work to change stories from a victim-centric nature to a more empowered author of one story. And why do I say that? Why did I say victim-centric nature? It's because, and I'll speak exclusively for English. The English language has got some major glitches in it. And the way that it is used almost exclusively, it's externalized, it's vague, and it's inflammatory. And without the proper training, and this is again, I come from an education background. I've got a degree in education and all that. Most people's language is working against them. And we don't learn how to get our language working for us, which comes from awareness. That's where the whole thing starts, also known as thinking about your thinking. Alan Watts said that. He said, when you think about your thinking, you become alive in a new way. And he's right. And so due to a lack of education, most people's language and their words and their stories and their breath is working against them. Most people's stories are architected or formed in a it's also an inheritance. I mean, we inherit our language from the generations before us. It's of a victim-centric nature, and it traps people's breath in their chest because that's existent. Being a victim at any level is stressful, and if you keep going, it's existentially stressful. And when people's breath is trapped in the chest, then they're really easy to scare with the next thing that you need to be afraid of. And so if you don't think about your thinking and you just let you go with the first thing that shows up in your head because, it must be true. It's my own voice in my own head. Yeah, of course. I got it right the first time. No need to write it down and draft it out and make it better. Then there are mega industries that are very happy and more than happy. They expect to take full advantage of people's individual and collective victim mentalities. And if we keep going down this road, then we're getting the Borg. Transhumanism. Sound fun? Huh? Sound fun, everybody? Call me old-fashioned. I'm into making babies the old way. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Star
don't
Trek.
think.
Star Trek tried to tell us. Star Trek tried to tell us the Borg. That's what transhumanism is. The formula is humanity plus the victim mentality plus technology equals the Borg, which is the transhumanism, which is the merger of man and machine. The soul is extracted. Rudolf Steiner spoke exclusively about this in numerous lectures.
Yeah.
And then you've got something's profoundly strange and unfortunate. And if we can get a handle on on our stories. They're very powerful. It's an understatement. Then we got a shot at Star Trek, which looks really cool. Zipping around, shooting at Klingons, you know, hooking up, dancing, cool suits. Star Trek.
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, I,
I'm serious about and sincere about all this stuff that I'm saying, and I'm also having a good time, everybody, because that's if you
yes,
laugh at
it's
the
it's
devil,
the
he'll
only
run
way.
away. It's the
It's the
only
only way.
way. It's the only good way.
Yeah, it's the only way. I talked to Matt Boudreau yesterday,
Oh,
and
dude.
he,
Okay.
yeah, from Apogee, and
How'd
we
you
talked
how'd
a
you get in
lot
touch with
about
him?
this.
How'd you find out about him? Pardon me for interrupting.
Well, I got a project here in Croatia and land, and I was thinking about joining the program, and yeah, just got basically through Apogee, I got to him, and yeah,
Super
interesting
cool. Yeah, he and
conversation.
I are
What?
friends.
All right, nice. Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Been on his podcast a couple of times, and done some workshops for
amazing.
Apogee.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we talked a lot about like children, and because I think it's the only way if we want to change anything. We've seen, especially in the last couple of years, like the adults are, forget about that. But the next generation, I think we can do something there, and so right, the communication that we have with them, right, like the language that we choose with them, is super interesting. What do you think are the ways we should talk to children? Because I know you go into depth there.
Um, First things first. Kids don't need all of our words. Okay, children do not need the volume of words that adults share. Okay, fewer, fewer words,
Yeah,
more consciously constructed. We can get to that in a second. At a slower pace. Okay, so less words at a slower pace. Listen, they're putting these little puzzles together. Okay, they're in formation. Kids don't speak that fast. 3-year-olds don't speak fast. Okay, so why are we speaking to them that fast? Um, and so the way certain words are, it's affirmations. We'll get into the difference between affirmations and negations as far as instruction and parenting. And I used to teach elementary school PE. Like I don't have any kids, and I taught hundreds of first, second, third, fourth, and fifth graders for 5 years in Thailand. I mean, I understand communication with children, and here's where I'm going. More importantly than how do we talk to children, how do we breathe around children? Okay, because our language is an inheritance. I know it's weird to think about it like that, um, and we do inherit it. People think their inheritance is, hopefully a little bit of cash when their parents croak or something. No, we inherit way more than that. If you want to go on a deep dive, look up epigenetics. Have fun. And so we inherit our language from our parents, and we also inherit their breathing patterns. So what you want to do around children is here's some enlifted words for you. Super complicated. Good luck understanding it. Low and slow. You want to breathe low and slow around kids because they are going to model our breathing mechanics, our breathing patterns. It's called entrainment. And very rarely does a child come out of we use these words in the States, high stress environment. What does that mean? That means everybody's holding their breath. That means everybody's holding their breath. Very rarely does a child come out of a situation like that and they're just cool, calm, and collected. No, they're holding their breath too. And one of the easiest things that you can do, most valuable things you can do when you get around, and this goes for anybody. I mean, go on a date. Go on a date and hold your breath and tell me how you like that. Get on a sales call. Hold your breath. Tell me how you like that. Go give a presentation. get on a podcast and breathe like shit. Let me know how that goes. Okay. And so breathe well around your children, low and slow, and watch what happens. The whole thing, the whole vibe just goes down regulation. Here's a story about it. He signed up for our level 1 certification based on one podcast he listened to and one experience he had because of something I said on that podcast. So on the podcast, guess what we were talking about? Low and slow breathing. His wife goes into labor early. She has a quote unquote stressful birth, and they have one other child. His youngest is 4, and now they have this new baby, and they're in the doctors. They're in the hospital room. There's a lot of commotion going on. His 4-year-old son is quote unquote bouncing off the walls. He said I've got two. He goes, I recognized that I had 2 options. I could say something and just talk to him like give him some tell him don't do that or stop doing that. Something along those lines. Or he goes, no, I could just start breathing low and slow. And he said he did. And he said in a matter of 2-3 minutes, his son just calmed right down, didn't say a word to him, calmed right down, climbed up in his lap, put his head on his chest, and went to sleep. And he goes, I got to sign up for the cert. He got on a call, and I told him everything that I tell everybody that we get on calls about. And he goes, really, man, I was just interested in the price. If it wasn't outrageous, I was going to sign up because that shit works. And so that's more important than the words. Oh, and by the way, if someone's breathing well, your delivery of your words is going to be way better. Way better.
Yeah.
Way better.
Definitely.
And then from there, we could get into some specifics of, the affirmations and negations. It can get a little technical. I mean, well, it's worth talking about. It takes 2 seconds. Fine. I'll make it quick. Okay. So, don't talk back to me, or you can't get up if you don't finish your dinner, or don't fall down and get your clothes dirty. Or stop being so mean to your sister. Those are all negations. Don't fall down and get your clothes dirty. I just made a picture of them in my mind falling down and getting their clothes dirty. And those are my words. And guess what? They made that picture too. Or don't talk back to me. Okay. Now we just both made a picture of them talking back to me, and I piss myself off, and then I share it with them. So what I'm saying is, speaking to your kids in the affirmative. So most parents say, I hate repeating myself. And they say that because they're repeating themselves in negation. They're pissing themselves off first and then sharing that story, that sentence, that spell with their kids. And then the stress, and then the breath, and then the energy, and then the thing just compounds. And the whole family, that's what baseline is. This is chronic upregulated stress state, and most people don't even know that that's even running in their field. No, it is. The environment that you grew up in is the energy of it's a real thing, and a lot of that comes down to the breathing, and a lot of that comes down to how people are using their words. So it's this thing. We're known as let me get this on the table too. We're known as the language people. We nerd out about this shit all day long. And we might as well be known as the language and the breathing people. And push comes to shove, it's about the breath. I'm here to help people use their words different and better so they can breathe better. Because everything improves across the board when people are breathing well. Everything. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at the beach today, just before, and, there was a father, and just when I arrived and I heard him say to his 2 daughters, like, yeah, if you go in the sea now, you'll definitely end up sick in the bed, And I'm like, yeah, that's the way to go, right? It's literally, most people are always like that, like, don't go, but if you go, you will be sick, right? Like, it doesn't work like that. Another thing, the breathing patterns that we inherit, right? Because that's an interesting one for me personally. So I got asthma, prescribed, let's say, since I'm a kid, got it from my dad, and basically fourth generation, right? But then I kind of understood that I have a different kind of asthma than my dad. So I always knew, that that thing can be kind of worked through, right? So when I heard you talk about that, that was super interesting, and maybe you can go into more depth there because, yeah, that's something that I also want to work on.
I forget who it is. It might have been Joe Dispenza. Somebody
Mm.
who's famous in the game. Um, they said that the first time that they remember noticing that something was up, okay, um, was when they, as a child, they as a kid, they would have asthma. They would only have asthma when a certain family member would come around, and that got them thinking back then. And they didn't have any answers; they just noted it. Okay, they were aware of it, and then they got into all of the magic studying of these kinds of things. And when you think about that, um, what comes to mind? That asthma might be an inherited uh, effect of something.
Yeah, I mean it's one of these things, where like you're told, like if it's from your epigenetics, or when you kind of inherit it, it's always going to be there, right? Like that's the language you're being told from an early age, right? And like the older I got, the more I understood that it cannot be that way. I worked through a lot of these dogmas, or like these I don't know, whatever they are, right? Like weird mindsets.
Hmm.
And I know it can all be lifted, right? But that one is like it's a really difficult one for me, at least personally, right? And I haven't heard of anyone that kind of worked through it by himself. If it's like behind, after the age of like 15 or so. Mm,
Got it. Um,
so yeah, so go for it.
do you have a pen and paper, or a way you could write something down?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
If you want to, we can. Either way. I'm good to go either way. We can talk about it, or we could do something with the story of it. Like, so do something
Yeah, let's do it.
specifically with it. You want to do it? Okay, cool.
Let's do so. Yeah, let's do
Um,
something specific.
and what do you have? A phone, a device, a piece of paper, pen?
I got a pen,
Oh, fantastic. Okay,
and
cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
what what language what language did you? What's your native language?
German.
German. And is
Yeah.
is that the language that is that the language of your family's native language?
Yeah, we spoke German at home, but my mom's native is Croatian, and my
Croatian.
dad's German. Yeah,
Okay, very cool. And what side of the family was the
from the German side.
it's from the German side? Okay.
Yeah,
And that's the language that you first started learning about
yeah,
the asthma, and you were diagnosed with asthma in. Okay, perfect. That's important, everybody, as far as choosing a particular language to write out a story with, because that's how we got in touch, uh, Max and I. Which it'd be cool to share how that happened. And then that's just wild. You're talking to Matt Boudreau yesterday. Small world, man. Okay. Title the story. Let me back up. Was the moment that you got diagnosed with asthma, was that shocking in any way, or stressful in any way, or maybe the first time that you had an asthma attack? or maybe even saw one of your family members, like your dad or your grandfather, have an asthma attack? Does does any of those do any of those memories present themselves?
Well, I mean, I've asked around because like the first thing that happened was when I was like 3 or 4. That was the first attack I had, right, due to
Mm,
an allergic reaction. But then, my dad had a massive attack, and like back in the day, you wouldn't have like these kind of soft medications, right, like a spray or whatever. So
sure.
my mother was pregnant with me, and he had an attack, and he almost died, right? So he almost choked, and then that was whilst like whilst I was in the belly, apparently somewhere there. So that was probably the first one that I kind of experienced, and then surely my own, at age 3 or 4. um,
Okay.
yeah,
Let's
on an
let's
island, right? Like just an allergic reaction.
okay. Okay, very
Yeah,
cool. Here's the good news
yeah.
is that some people have more quote unquote have more stories of a negative nature than others. And I don't care how many stories somebody's got, it's finite. And when you start getting in there and you know, picking up the pen, writing them out, breaking spells, we'll talk about that here in a second. Um, title the story of you being in the womb and your dad having that massive asthmatic attack. Just give it a title. What would you title that story?
First touch point.
Perfect. Write that out in German, please, Max.
Hmm.
And then write out title title in German, your first experience having an asthmatic attack. So age 3 or 4 on the island. Give that a title and write that title down. And I have no idea what these stories are about, folks. I thought we were just going to get on here, and I'm fine either way, talking about stuff. It's we're going to run something. We're going to run something called four-stepping a story, and I'll explain it so to keep everybody on the same page, because I teach. If I'm coaching, I'm teaching, or if I'm running the Enlifted method, I'm teaching. Um, which one of those two stories, Max, looking at them as they are right now, which is they're just titles are written down, which one has more energy to it? Which one has more charge to it?
Probably the second one.
The second one? Okay, let's go
Yeah.
with that one. Um, and while you're doing that, I'm going to explain the difference to your audience between stories kept in the head, which is where most people keep their stories, especially the scary ones, and stories written out. And that usually takes me 2 or 3 minutes. So while you're writing this out, I'll be sharing with your audience. Go ahead and write out that story of your first experience, and write it in German. Um, and write conversationally, Max. So conversational writing is very important when it comes to breaking spells. And conversational writing is writing as if you were talking, as if you were telling the story. So write it out. Write out what happened conversationally, and
Yeah.
err on the side of more detail than less. So just one or two sentences. It's usually not enough to summon the magic. So write it out conversationally, erring on the side of more detail than less.
Is that valid as well? Because it's a told story, right? Because I retell the told story instead of my own.
And
Same
okay,
thing.
so you were told the story of your first experience
Yeah, of
with
course. I
with
mean, I was
asthma.
too young,
Yep.
right? Yeah, I was too young.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with that. We inherit those stories too.
That's
And
that's exactly my thought, right?
yep.
Yeah.
And so there's the words that we inherit, like those words came out of your mother or your father or both of them, and the energy. So let's say we have a specialty course in Enlifted. It's called Enlifted Ancestors, and it deals all with this. So let's say
Mm.
a father told their son about some um, abuses in his life when he was a child. And the father gets emotional telling the story to the son. That energy is real, and it travels with the words into the son, and it sets up residence. Like here's a common one. Let's say a father tells their son stories of how they had it so hard when they were a child, and now you have it so much better, and so you should be grateful. And what usually ends up happening is it's the exact opposite. My dad had it hard. I've got it so much easier than him. I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough. And so the stories are very powerful. We inherit stories. And here's the thing with four stepping, because this is what we're about to do. If it can be written down, it can be four stepped, whether it's something that happened to us when we were 16 or in the womb, or a reoccurring nightmare, or something that we're afraid of happening in the future, or something that happened last week, or or just whatever. If it can be written down, we can work with it.
Yeah.
Okay, very
Perfect.
cool. Do you have any questions about this next step, which is the writing?
No.
Okay,
So
very cool.
conversational.
Yep, in your native German. Okay, here's the deal, everybody. Um, most people keep their stories of ouch and pain and sting and woe, and sadness and guilt and grief and fear, and all the quote unquote negative stuff. They keep those stories in their head. A story kept in the head takes up a lot of space, oddly enough. It's seemingly infinite. It swirls. Where does it start? Where does it stop? There's the worst part again. Ouch. Story kept in the head is it's the story is in you or in your client, and your client or you is still in the story. Time does not apply to the emotional body. Okay. That's why you can relive or recount a story that happened when you're 5 and it feels like you're right back there. Story kept in the head, breath trapped in the chest. Okay. I'll do it like this. Story kept in the head, again, which is where most people keep their stories. Story kept in the head, breath trapped in the chest, picture is in your face. Wherever you go, there it is. I mean, this is the mechanics of story, okay? Which is way it's this is the how of storytelling. So what we're going to do with this, and I have no idea what's in the story, we're going to externalize it. We're going to write it out, and then we're going to air it out. And as the breath unlocks and descends, as the breath unlocks and descends, the picture moves out. And the person goes from the participant to the observer. That is a breakthrough. That is the definition. That is the Enlifted definition of a breakthrough. People talk about breakthroughs a lot. What are they? It's going from the relentless participant to the observer. And that's all people need. We're not changing stories. We're not changing the past. Because here's an example. I've got thousands of examples. We did a workshop a few years ago in Austin, Texas. It was smash hit success. I worked with 4 people. It was a 4-hour workshop. I worked with 4 people. The first woman I worked with, she went into the story of her first panic attack, which was the night before she went to first grade. This little girl, 6, 7, 6, she's lying in bed, and the thought comes over her that I have to get every single thing right in all of my schooling. Otherwise, my parents won't love me. Like I said, opinions, right? That's ridiculous. But she, that's what showed up. And she had this massive panic attack and was shitting her pants the whole time she went through school, got straight A's, but was in this majorly upregulated stress state running the perfection syndrome. And we went into that story. and did what we're going to do with it. It's called four-stepping. Step one, title it, write it out. She did that. And then we did what we're about to do, Max. And at the end of it, she had an emotional release in the middle of it, unlocked the breath. And I go, what? I asked her after step four, what happened when you got the breath in there? And she paused. She really thought about it. And she goes, it's the difference between being in the horror movie, and watching the horror movie. And I thought to myself, that's perfect. Because there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference between being chased by a crazy person with a chainsaw versus sitting on your couch with a blanket and some popcorn and a beer and your favorite person watching someone on the television get chased with a chainsaw, and you know it's going to end, and then you're going to go to bed and wake up tomorrow and have some coffee. It's like, it's very different.
Yeah.
So that was another one of I rant and tangent, professionally speaking, professionally. Did you write that out, Max? Did you write down all the story?
Yeah, I did. And like, to me, I'm actually already, like, in the bird's eye view with that story. So I'm not sure, right? But we can try it anyways.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, so step one, he wrote it out. Cool. Step two, go ahead and read what you wrote, buddy, and let's see what happens.
Ich habe einen allergischen Anfall bekommen und bin fast erstickt, weil keiner das erwartet hatte, und zum Glück hatten wir Medizin dabei, die eigentlich für meinen Vater gedacht war. So basically, I had an allergic attack and almost kind of suffocated because, I couldn't breathe anymore. And luckily, my dad had medicine for him with him, which they then used for me, right? So, because it was the first one, nobody expected it, right, with me. Yeah.
Perfect. What kind of energy or emotion or feeling, if any, and if not at all, is a fantastic answer too. What kind of energy or emotion does reading that bring up?
Nothing crazy, actually.
Okay. Nothing crazy,
I thought,
or nothing, nothing at
that.
all? So bring up any
Nothing,
energy at all?
Nothing at all, actually. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. So same story in German. Step three, slow it down by 30%. So 70% of your normal rate of speech. Slow that down, read it at that pace, and we'll see what happens, if anything.
Ich habe einen allergischen Anfall bekommen und bin fast erstickt, weil keiner das erwartet hat. Zum Glück hatte mein Vater Cortison dabei. I think I paraphrased it before, but yeah, that's kind of what it is. Yeah.
What happened when you slowed it down, Max?
Yeah, it hits differently, for sure.
How so? How does it hit differently?
Yeah, because you probably have more time to digest each word.
Yep. Yeah. Describe the vibe. Describe the energy. What are you feeling?
I'm feeling that probably suffocating would have been not that great, right?
Well, that's what you're thinking. What are you feeling? Is there an energy in your chest? Is it like tingles in your hands? Is it a sadness? Is it a fear? What, describe the energy of it?
The energy is more, external, actually, towards the situation itself, that it must have been difficult for the people involved, right? Rather than me, actually, because I've had these later on, and I know, like, I can work through them. So, like, to me, they're not that drastic anymore, right? But it looks crazy to the outside.
Okay, so who was there?
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Who was there? Your mom and your dad?
Yeah, and somebody else, like I think my cousins or something, but I don't remember. Yeah.
Who do you think reacted the strongest to it?
My mother, for sure.
Okay. How did she react to it?
Well, she probably thought, the same thing that she thought when my dad had the attacks, that she was going to lose me.
So she was afraid.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you feel any of her fear?
Yeah, more than mine, probably.
That's very normal, everybody.
Yeah.
Very normal. Um, where do you feel that fear? Where do you feel her fear?
Mm, maybe in the groin, stomach.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Tens high, ones low. What number is it?
maybe like a 3.
Okay. So for review, everybody, step one, it's very simple. Step one, title a story, write it out conversationally. Step two, read it. Whatever happens is perfect. Step three, slow it down by 30%. What happens when someone slows down their rate of speech? The breath begins to unlock. Very important. The breath begins to loosen up. Breath trapped in the chest means we have a white knuckle grip on the story. We're attached to it. Okay. I was talking about this earlier was on a session with one of our students. A conversation about mindset that does not include practical parts about the breathing. It's all it is theory.
Hmm.
Our breathing is so important when it comes to changing our stories. It's as important as the brakes or the accelerator or the steering wheel. It's like you need it. So step 4 is the slow read, plus every time that you stop at the end of a sentence, and I'm going to breathe with you, Max. This is very important if you ever do this with other people. I'm going to breathe with you. So at the end of each sentence, so it's a slow read. At the end of each sentence, I want you to do this. All the air in, all the air out. We'll see what happens at the end of each sentence.
Ich habe einen allergischen Anfall bekommen und bin fast erstickt, weil keiner das erwartet hat.
Good breath.
Zum Glück hatte mein Vater Cortison dabei.
What happened when you got the breath in there?
Well, the information travels differently, right? Like it goes deeper. You can feel it in the cell. Especially if it's something that's still working actively. Yeah.
That right there, everybody, is as simple and effective of a way to go about changing stories, changing mindset as you're going to find. And you can plug anything in there. You can plug a car accident in there. You can plug a divorce in there. You can plug an injury in there. You can plug a failed business in there. You can plug your greatest fear in there. It's not context dependent because it works on the mechanics of story. Stories kept in the head are very, 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 I said that 3 times, 4 and out, very hard to change compared to once the stories are written down on paper. Once the story is written down on paper, your life as someone who's into personal and professional development, or your life as a coach, just got so much easier. So much easier. The fastest way, and part of the reason is that stories kept in the head go very quickly. And it's a good rule of thumb. The faster a story goes, the harder it is to change. I'm going to say that twice. The faster the story goes, the harder it is to change. Look at the words too. And the fastest way to slow down a story is to write it out. And now the words are externalized, and you can then you can read it, and read it slow, and read it with breath in there. And you know, I said this on a podcast somewhat recently. I didn't need a PhD at the age of 9 to create the story that no one will ever be there for me when my parents got a divorce. I didn't need a PhD to create that story at 9 years old. And I don't need a PhD to pick up a pen now and write that story out and get my breath in there and change some of those words. Because guess what? You think I got the thing completely right when I was 9 or 7 or 5 or 12? And a lot of people's stuff that they're dealing with as an adult, it's just reverberations or echoes from those stories of our childhood that are kept in the head. So pick up that pen, even though it feels like it weighs 500 pounds. Yeah, this work stings a little bit. It can sting a lot. But you know what? That's nothing compared to bumping up into that stuff for 20, 30 years. That's the real scary stuff, if we get honest. Yeah, so yeah, that was just a little bit of Enlifted work on the fly. What came to mind for you, Max, when we were doing that, if anything?
I mean, I've done something like on that kind of story, maybe not that particular one, but like some other energy work, and also in in a more psychedelic kind of setting. So it wasn't that difficult for me to actually bring it up. It was more like, okay, more the technicalities of this podcast itself, right? Like, is that the right thing to do at this moment, right? Like, it was nothing in particular with the actual work. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, it's I mean, I know for a fact that this stuff works because it does, right? Like, anything that you write down and you connect it with breath and meditation and all these types of varieties, they're just amazing. So
Very well said. Yeah, write it down,
yeah,
connect it with breath. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Most people's breath is very disconnected, or at least trapped by and in their story. It's not a fun place to live.
No, it's not, and it is tough, when you've had to listen to the same stuff like through your whole childhood, right? And you see it with, right, you see it with your children now, when they're with the grandma, for example, right? Like, it's interesting, but yeah, I think if you notice it, you can change something about it, and that's the good part.
Thinking about the thinking. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And good job thinking about the kids, man. You're absolutely right. I don't know if we were recording when we started talking about that, but that's where the real leverage is. My favorite quote about Einstein, or from Einstein, he said, "Intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them." And helping children learn well and learn about their story, their mindset, and get the language working for them early on. That's what that is. That's solving problems before they even show up.
Yeah. It's much harder to fix a broken man, right? And yeah, I have a couple nephews, and I saw a lot of stuff that went wrong, and it made me think, like, early on, right? Like, way before I had a son. So I think if you have children, then it's of utmost importance that you work through these topics, and at least try your best. Otherwise, yeah, it's you fail as a parent in some sense, I would say. But
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
maybe that's a good segue to the language patterns that you mentioned in the beginning, right? With the victim
Mm,
mentality. If you you would you also approach that with these 4-step um, methods?
good, very good question. So there's a couple of ways to improve our words. Um, as far as stories are concerned, stories of an annoying or a hurting or a haunting nature, you want to four-step those things first before you start tinkering with the words. Okay. It's not a law, of course, it's a rule of thumb. And here's why. Like I said earlier, stories kept in the head take up a lot of space. They're very scary. Pictures in your face. Breath trapped in the chest. Breath trapped in the chest. I'm still in the story. Breath trapped in the chest means I'm attached to how the words are put together. Let's address the breathing. Okay, that's what the 4-step does. That's what it's built for, is to address people's breathing in context to stories. Once a story is out and aired out and someone's breathing better, it's way easier to go from um, you know, my dad told me that I would never amount to anything. Let's say that was the main sentence in a story someone has about their dad in their head. It's been bothering them since the moment it happened. My dad told me that I would never amount to anything. And then, the story is written out and aired out. And so it's easier to go from that to my dad told my dad he would never amount to anything, and try that story on. Take a look at it from that angle, because that's usually the case. That's usually the case.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because think about it, everybody. Very rarely does, like, let's just pretend a father has got just everything's going great. Business is good, making money, great friends, wife, he happily married, and then then he's gonna go to his son and say, "You're a piece of shit. You're never gonna do anything with your life." That's not how it happens. No, what that is, you're never gonna amount to anything. That's just an echo of what he's saying in his head. Okay, maybe that was said to him when he was a kid. Like I said, echoes, generational inheritance. Um, okay, so let me back up a little bit. There's this thing. It's called the victim mentality, and most people are have heard of it, but they've never heard the definition of it. Okay, the victim mentality. I'm gonna recite the definition twice, which is a perfect segue into the three main language patterns of the victim mentality and what to do about them. Okay, because we've got some very practical, simple advice for people that want to get started improving their language. If you improve your language, you're going to improve your stories. And if you improve your story, you improve your mindset. And if you improve your mindset, you improve your breathing. And you get your breathing and your stories going in the direction that you want them to, working for you. That's the greatest gift you'll ever give the people that are in your life. Okay? Because that's called a good version of you. Like I said, most people have never heard the definition of the victim mentality, much less written it down. So I'm going to recite it twice. First time, slow. Second time, I'm going to speed it up and add some context, add some polish. So here's the first one. And I recommend picking up a pen and writing this out, because if you do, you're now in a very exclusive club and you'll retain more of it. The victim mentality is an acquired personality trait where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. It's a verbatim definition of the victim mentality. Here it is, again, a little faster. The victim mentality is an acquired personality trait where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. Like they said, it tends to, it's a tendency. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. The victim mentality depends, circle that word, on a habitual, underline that word, thought process and attributions. That second sentence is a bullseye. The victim mentality depends, as in it has to have a habitual thought process. Habitual accurately implies duration and addiction. Thought process. What's a thought process? Glad you asked. You all have one. It's how you put your words together on the daily, on the reg. It's how you use your words. It's your thought process. And then attributions. What's an attribution? It's a characteristic. And the main characteristic that we pay attention to after what words people are using is how they're breathing. And now that we've got the definition on the table, we can talk about, so my simple mind, I'm like, okay, well, if there are language patterns that the victim mentality has to have, what are the language patterns? What are the words that force me to stare at myself as a victim of circumstance, talk myself out of doing shit, create villains out of thin air, okay, and keep that thought train wreck, get it, going? What are the words? And so there are three main pillars of what we call conflict language. And they account for roughly 85% of the words that people use to, and it's an accident, it's unconscious. I mean, very few people want to light their head on fire with their stories. They want to play the victim. They want to create problems and chaos. And there's some of those people are out there, sure. Okay, avoid them. And most people are just doing it by accident because they didn't learn about this stuff in high school English class, or high school German class, or high school Turkish class, or high school French class, or high school Thai class. Okay. All those languages, there's a finite amount of ways in German for me to piss myself off. There's a finite amount of ways in Thai for me to tell myself a story that they're taking advantage of me, okay, or they're wasting my time. So the first one is projections. There's three pillars, like I said. Number one, projections. This is where we recommend going last, because this is where the venom is. This is where the bitterness is. This is where the strongest emotions, on average, reside. Okay? So, stronger the emotion, the tighter the grip on the words. So, if you remember the story of that woman who had the breakup, he did that to me. Or she never lets me think for myself. Or they're wasting my time. Okay? The projection keywords: he, she, they, people's first names, mom, dad. Dad always talks to me like I'm a child. Take out dad and put in I. Okay? The government. Right? And so when I say dad always speaks to me like a child, I'm creating the victim villain mental imagery. I'm in the picture, he's in the picture, he's doing something to me repeatedly, okay, in my imagination. And I have to wait for him to stop in my imagination for me to feel better about things, and then I can forgive him for it. What? As opposed to, I always talk to me like a child. Ooh, that's got a little different vibe to it. I mean, who, that they're always putting me down versus I'm always putting me down. Who talks more trash to us about us than us? It's not even a close second. I mean, hate speech, that's a thing people like talking about. What about self-hate speech? What about self-hate speech? It's not even in the same ballpark. Let's deal with the self-hate speech first. And you know what? You're really not going to give a fuck about the hate speech. Okay. So that's a psyop, but that's another conversation. If you got any questions, just
Yeah.
listen to Alex Jones. He'll tell you. And folks, we got the documents. And then she's wasting my time. Be brave. I dare you. It's a brave game. Take out the she and put in I. I'm wasting my time. Ooh, who wastes more of your time than you? It's not even a close second. Okay. Or she never lets me think for myself. I never let me think for myself. And then you just start you just start walking the thing back. It's the most annoying sport in the world. While being the most empowering. It's like it's the best of news and the worst of news. Sweet. I'm creating my own story. Fuck. I'm creating my own story simultaneously. So that's projections. The second is negations. And this is also, how parents upset themselves most frequently when they're talking to their kids. So the key words are don't, can't, isn't, not, won't, shouldn't, haven't. And it sounds like this. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Or I can't keep living like this. Or negation and projection. I won't let them take advantage of me again. I won't let me take advantage of me again. Well, that's what I won't do. What will I do? Well, I can change some things. Here's an example. Okay, so what that does is it forces you to stare at the worst case scenarios. Okay, that's what negations do. My driving teacher said when I got in the car, look where you want to go because you're probably going to go there. I was on the hippie festival scene for a number of years, and I did this a bunch in workshops and stuff. I'm like, raise your hand if you've ever heard, if you know what a vision board is. Everybody raises their hand. Yeah, I know what a vision board is. I'm like, do you ever put what you don't want to have happen up on there? They're like, no. And I'll go, well, why would you do that with your internal vision board, your imagination? And they're like, oh. And then we start talking about negations. Here's an example. Another one. I was doing just 10 years ago, man. Nuts. 2014 in Canada, I did a workshop for some sales reps. And I stayed after and did individual sessions. And myself and this young guy in a room. 2 chairs facing each other, 6 feet apart. I'm looking at him. He's looking at me. This is what he says. This is what he says, and this is what he does. He goes, Mark, I can't keep focusing on my past. And for those of you all listening, I just turned around and looked behind me, which is what he did. He go, look at the words. I can't, negation keyword, keep focusing on my past. He turned around and looked behind him and then turned back and looked at me, and he didn't know he did it. Because he was too in the story. That's what happens when you don't think about your thinking. You're consumed with the story. And I go, dude, you just turned around and looked behind you, right? And he goes, what? And I go, yeah, what did you see? And he had to stop and think about it. Again, the faster the story goes, the harder it is to change. The faster the story goes, the more consumed we get with it. The faster the story goes, the less aware and observant we become. Okay, being able to change the rate of the story is it's very important and powerful and easy. And I asked him, so what did you see? He goes, I saw myself on the couch and all alone. And then I asked him how he was feeling. He said scared and angry, and then behind that, underneath that, scared. And I said, cool. Here's a pen and a piece of paper. Write that sentence down. And he goes, which one? And I go, I can't keep focusing on my past. And he did. He wrote it out. I can't keep focusing on my past. And I said, if that's what you can't keep doing? What can you start doing? And it was like that woman in the workshop when I first saw this stuff. It's clunky delivery because when you're using new words, it's going to be a little awkward, especially depending on the level of addiction to the story to the story that we're changing. Yeah, people can get addicted to stories. He goes, he didn't even get a full sentence out. It was half of a sentence with a stutter. Focus on my future more, and it went up at the end. It's called up talk. And I go, yes, say it again. And it sounded just like this, like somebody you'd be teaching German to for the first time, or me teaching English to for the first. He goes, I can focus on my future more. I can, and then it started to get easier. He's in the breath losing. I can focus on my future more. And now that we've got him pointed in the right direction, metaphysically speaking, I said, cool. What can you do? And he identified 3 things, which were easy to do because now, like I said, he's looking in the right direction. Instead of looking behind him, literally and metaphysically, he knew he needed to read 2 books that everybody that was making money was talking about. Enroll in the mentorship program at work, and then go out. It was the first Tuesday of the month. Everybody goes out drinking, and so he did those 3 things. Everybody at work, so it was like this work social thing. And he did. And he messaged me 9 months later, and he said, dude, I did those 3 things. I'm making money. I moved out. I like my life now. Thanks. I'm like, you're welcome. And by the way, he goes, you changed my life. And I'm thinking to myself, all I did was help you change some words. So first pillar, projections. Second pillar, negations. Third pillar, and this is where you want to start. This is the gateway drug to the rest of the words. It's easy. Soft talk. Here are the soft talk keywords. I'm going to read them out. Max, how about you do that? How about you read them out from the top?
Yeah, it's difficult, but soft talk challenge, and probably perhaps feels like don't know what that is. Maybe could possibly sort of kind of and so on. Yeah.
Potentially, hopefully, try. One day, should, almost like, guess. I guess it's like I'm going to make more of an effort this time. Or I think I might need to really get back in the gym again, maybe. Or it's almost like I'm procrastinating. And so what you do is you just, yeah, right? It's super easy. You just start plucking these words out of your language. I guess I might need to get back in the gym. Take out the guess. I might need to get back in the gym. Take out the might. I need to get back in the gym. Take out the need. I could get back in the gym. Take out the could, put in can. I can get back in the gym. Well, shit, when? I can get back in the gym Friday. And so you go from it ain't happening. Or if it is, it's going to be a punch up with these words. These words cause major problems in people's lives. I know we talked on some big picture issues like transhumanism. Forget all that. Take out the soft talk. Take out the soft talk and watch what happens. You're going to have an experience. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel the difference between maybe I could put in more effort at home to I could put in more effort at home. Take out the could, put in can. I could put in more effort at home. Now, and you talk yourself into stuff. You'll sound different. To yourself. You'll feel different to yourself. You'll sound different to other people. You'll feel different to other people. I mean, listen, long-standing bouts of indecision are very stressful. And if people are using these words, then they're getting the indecision. And if someone stays indecisive for long enough, they eventually identify themselves as an indecisive person, and then you get better at it. It's like once a person starts calling themselves late, oh, I'm just late. I'm late a lot. I'm always late. they're going to get even better at it. You don't want to be good at being late. So those are the three language patterns. Those are the three language patterns that account for 85% of the words that people use accidentally and unconsciously because they're not thinking about their thinking to cause their problems. And we're causing the majority of our problems. That's good news. That's the best news ever. Because if that wasn't the case, then we really do have a problem. No, most people are just confused about who's doing what to them and how powerful their words and stories and breath are. And what mindset is. That's all it is.
Yeah,
That's all this is. It's just a
definitely.
conversation about education. Matt Boudreau would approve.
Yeah. Yeah, and it would be so much easier if we actually got taught or were taught, like how to break a habit like early on, or how to establish one, like these simple basics, right?
Yeah.
But we don't learn any of it. We learn the exact opposite of all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until they listen to us talk about this for the Under the Pines workshop or podcast.
Yeah.
This was a little bit
It's a
of a
workshop.
workshop. It was a little bit. It was more. I mean, there were elements to that for sure. It was more than just a conversation.
Yeah.
It was
I mean, if
participatory.
someone can extrapolate something useful, it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
You speak about the reticular activating system a lot. I just wanted to touch upon that before we wrap up.
Very cool.
Can you
Yep.
explain what that is?
Yes. Yes. First things first. Everyone's got one. We all have one. The reticular activating system, or RAS for short. Look it up. So think of it as the lens that you see things through. Take out things and put in yourself. Take out yourself, put in the world. And it's like a pair of binoculars. We bring things into focus and out of focus all the time. And the main way that we do that is with our words. And here's the easiest example of the reticular activating system at work. And then I'll throw some others in there. Have you ever purchased a car, Max, and then you start seeing that car out and about on the road more and more often?
Yeah, not with a car, but with something else. Yeah.
That's I did it. I've done that with numerous trucks and cars and Jeeps.
Mm.
And most people have done that with a car. You purchase a car and then you start seeing that car out and about. Or one time with me, I heard a couple of friends, listened to a couple of friends talk about their vacation to Italy. And then I started seeing vacation to Italy stuff all over the place. And this is before the internet. This is before algorithms. I saw brochures in supermarkets and a billboard, and it seemed like everybody's talking about going to Italy. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Or it will edit things out. It's a filter, so it forces us to see things, and it will edit things out that are not brought into our awareness consciously. It's called confirmation bias. And I've done this 3 or 4 times with fingernail clippers, of all things. I'll have the fingernail clippers in my hand, and then think, where are the fingernail clippers? And because I'm not looking for them in my hand, I'll walk around the house and look for them. And then they're in my hand, and I'm like, I'm a crazy person. No, I'm not. It's just the nature of the beast. It's the same thing with the halo and horns effect. It's like, let's say you have a certain picture of someone in your head, and then you hear some quote unquote bad news about them, and it changes the picture that you see in your head of them. And then the next time you see them, you act differently. Or the vice
Mm.
versa. Let's say you hear some surprisingly good news about someone, and it changes the way you see them in your head. And then you see them at a party, and you're way more excited to see them. We're doing that all the time with our words. And the main person we're doing that to with our words is ourselves.
Yeah.
So if you change your words, you're on top of everything. You're going to change the stories. You're going to change your breath. You're going to change the lens that you see things through. And it's just more fun. So back to your
Yeah, and
original
even
question, why should people think about their thinking? Because it's more fun to think about your thinking. Only if you want to
yeah,
have an adventurous life and be around cool people and do what you love. And I mean, I'm living this. I'm 17 years into a 50-year. I agreed to 50 years on the clock with this work. I'm 17 years
mm,
in full time, and I get to do the coolest shit. I get to talk to people in Croatia. You're in Croatia,
yeah,
okay? On a pot, like and talk about something that I'm very. I find it fascinating. It's way more than passionate about. That passion is an understatement. This is just bizarre and fascinating, and it's held my attention the whole time. And then the people I get to meet through it. So I did a coaching session this morning with one of our students. I've got a coaching session at 2 and at 4 with all 3 of them today. We're level 2 students, and this is what I do for work. I get to hang out with cool people and talk about words because
amazing.
I started thinking about my thinking back in the day, and I still do.
Yeah, that's why I do the podcast as well. Like it's basically moved to a small island, and then I was like, how the hell can I talk to cool people?
Well, buddy, if you're
and
looking for cool guests, man, I got a
yeah,
laundry list of them that I can send your way if you're looking for people to talk to about this kind of cool
100%.
stuff
Please
and other
do,
stuff. Okay, we'll connect
please do. Yeah,
on the gram about it. I've already got some ideas.
amazing. Where can people find you before we close up here?
To find out about the certifications, because that's what we do. We certify
Yes,
coaches and how to get people unstuck and dismantle the victim mentality. Same thing. Improve the power of words and stories. Enlifted.me. That's the website. That's about the certs. And then Instagram at Enlifted Coaches. And then we also have a podcast too. It's called Get Enlifted. And it's just coaches talking about the art and science of stories. It's fun.
yeah. We'll put it in the show notes as well. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Mark. It was a
My
pleasure.
pleasure, Max. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate it.
Definitely.